Dear beloved members of First Unitarian Church of Chicago, it is my pleasure to have this opportunity to share with you some words during times such as this. It is my prayer that you are all safe, well, and healthy during these moments of health crisis in our nation and in the world. I also wish to share words of thanks to your ministers, Terry and David, and also to Jeff, your music director. I am grateful for the ways in which they, as well as other religious professionals across our and other faith movements, have mobilized to create sacred spaces in which to gather us in worship. Times of crisis like this, like the one we are facing now, are times that call us into deeper bonds of community by other means. And what does it mean to be gathered in holy community? We may not be able to gather face to face in days where we used to gather in worship. Still, through the mediation of technology, we are finding ways to remain connected and create sacred spaces. I wish to remind us that the times we are living are also a time marked by the Christian liturgical calendar as the season of Lent. The season begins on Ash Wednesday and ends on Easter Sunday. The season of Lent moved those who observe it from lamentation brought about by death to the joys of celebration of the witness of power of new life. What a miracle it is to see life blooming from spaces one thought empty. Many of us Unitarian Universalists have an uneasy relationship with Christianity. Perhaps this is an auspicious moment for us to embark on a healing journey for the Spirit. The Judeo-Christian tradition is one of the many strands weaved into this larger tapestry of faith that is Unitarian Universalism. It is one that many of us, at one time or another, have wished we could pull out without unraveling the whole. But as Shirley and Rank in the Cakes for the Queen of Heaven remind us, although Judaism and Christianity are considered by many Unitarian Universalists to be but two among the many sources of inspiration, they are nevertheless the traditions within which most of us were raised. Yes, our collective spiritual journeys gather members from diverse religious paths. We have gained religious and spiritual depth through these encounters. We have enlarged our house faith. Some of these paths have been inspiring and nourishing. Other walks have been painful and scaring journeys to many of us. It is likely true that the Judeo-Christian tradition was the first home, faith home, to many of us. It is just as likely that many of us here today have been wounded by aspects of these traditions at one point or another. Healing our spirits is painful and arduous work. It is because of this woundedness in our midst that we need to embark on a healing journey for our spirits. It is because we are in need of healing that we search for a faith expansive enough to sustain and hold us as we heal. I wish now to share with you a story from the Christian scriptures, which I find instructive in this regard. This story is from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 3, verses 1 through 6. I will not read you the verses to you, but I want to tell you the story instead. Unlike the three other Gospels, Matthew, Luke, and John, the Gospel of Mark gets right to the action. It introduces us to the man Jesus at the moment of his baptism by water and the Spirit of life as he starts his ministry to bring the good news to the people of Galilee. In Mark chapter 3, we are told of a time when Jesus went to the synagogue and saw a man with a shriveled hand. We are told that some were unhappy with Jesus and were watching him closely. He was breaking too many rules, turning the social and religious order upside down with his message, and even performing miracles that defy the nature of the natural order. So they were watching him very closely on this Sabbath day to see if he would be reckless enough to heal someone. Such an act would break Jewish religious prescriptions of keeping the Sabbath holy. And then Jesus said to the man with the shriveled hand, "Stand up in front of everyone." And you see, Jesus had a hunch of what folks were thinking, so he turned the tables on them. Jesus asked a question, and not one they were expecting. He asked them, "Which is lawful on the Sabbath? To do good or to do evil? To save a life or to kill?" They remained silent. Right about then, they were probably hoping for an easier question. The gospel narrator tells us that Jesus looked at them in anger, but also with concern for their hearts. But Jesus' main concern was to do good rather than evil, to save a life rather than to kill. So he healed the man's hand. To heal, to restore, to preserve a life were more important to Jesus than the Sabbath. Religious conventions and doctrines will not get in his way to do what is right, to affirm life. This is something that we can affirm in our faith movement. We are proud of our heretical leanings and our understanding that salvation is not found on doctrines, but salvation is here and now. Salvation is how we work to make this world a little more just, a little more compassionate, a little bit more equitable, one day at a time. But on deeper reflection, I also think these stories turn the table on us and ask us a critical question. It asks a question of our faith. Have we been taking on an extended Sabbath in our faith as a detour from the hard work of healing our spiritual life from religion-induced trauma? Let me repeat the question again. Have we been taking a leisurely Sabbath, postponing the work of healing from our religion-induced trauma? Perhaps this is a story that can speak to us. Perhaps it is an invitation to resist the comforts that enables us to not heal from our work. That is to say, that enable us to remain in the comfort that we can postpone the work of healing our lives from religion-induced trauma. Whether the culprit was Christianity or another faith, our Unitarian Universalist faith calls us to encourage spiritual growth in our congregations. We cannot grow in our spiritual lives and as a faith movement if we approach our sacred work as being faith-first responders. If we limit the reach of our spiritual community to providing enough care to stabilize a first emergency and patch each other up just enough so that we can leave the faith emergency room, we have fallen short of the good news of Unitarian Universalism. Unitarian Universalism is a faith that affirms our inherent worth and dignity. It is a faith that calls us into living our lives working for justice, equity, and compassion. A faith that promotes acceptance of one another as we encourage each other to grow spiritually. It is a faith that affords us the freedom to seek for truth and knowledge. It is a faith that honors our conscience and promotes democratic living. It is a faith that charges us with fostering a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. It is a faith that urges us to respect the interdependence web of all existence because we are a part of it. Such a faith is a bold faith. It is a faith that, in the words of Nancy MacDonald Ladd, and I paraphrasing here, needs to articulate a theology deep enough to heal, as well as a theodicy to help us understand how evil, pain, suffering, and trauma can coexist with the sacred. We need to articulate such a theology to demonstrate our ability to bring about change in this flawed and broken world. I say yes to taking seriously responding to those wounded by religious trauma and creating a place to rest, a place of refuge. And beloved, we should also say yes to live up to the promise of our faith and to dare to heal. Let us dare to heal of our religious induced trauma. And as I close, I want to close with the words of the poem which I read earlier, Refuge by Jill Ozier. I'll tell you this, I am the only part of winter left. It beckoned, and I followed, past all reason. Follow it like the end of a broken train through white woods, and I stay with simple tools, set on trying to construct more of a season. It has taken all of me to do it, and you will not believe the storms. You will not believe how I sleep. From here, anything will sound like a cry. Everything looks like pieces of God.